Yo, what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Lay back with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're gonna be doing let's go through my comic book collection, I guess. So yeah. Anyways, this is like my first in real life video I've ever done on this channel. And it's been a while since I did an in real life video on any channel at all. As you know, like my other one, I had that was entirely in real life, whereas this channel is completely kind of like computer stuff. So yeah, I've never really done one before on this channel, which is pretty cool. I did once. Actually, I did once. I remember I showed like some action figures, like a while ago, like yeah, maybe 2 years ago, a year ago or something, in like the earliest stages of this channel. But anyways, so yeah, I'm gonna be doing my comic book collection. I'm gonna show off my comic books, I guess. Just keep in mind, I decided not to put no single issues or anything. I'm just strictly going with graphic novels and whatnot, so it's not going to be any showcasing any single issues or anything, because I just felt like it'll be too long with that. So I'm going to strictly do graphic novels. And yeah, before I want to say, in terms of how much I have, honestly, I haven't counted. That which would have been a good idea, but I know I have at least over 15 graphic novels here. Everything from Marvel and DC, and I have a few Star Wars as well. So yeah, and the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna show a comic book, and I'm gonna tell you if I've read it, if I haven't, what I thought of it. Do I think it's a good pickup or whatnot? Just like a quick review and stuff. Yeah, because my comic book collection is continuously growing. Like within this month, I think I've gotten a few comic books. So yeah, there's still some stuff I haven't read yet, but I mean I'll read definitely soon, hopefully. So yeah. Anyways, let's first of all let's get into like the first stuff, the least interesting stuff to say the least. I'm gonna be honest, in my opinion. Yeah, first comic book. We have Star Wars Thrawn. The Star Wars comic book. Yeah. If you've ever read the Thrawn books, it's essentially like an illustrated version of that. So I mean, I personally read the book, so I knew what happened. And as reading comic book, it's good to have some visuals, but I mean, that's all this really is good for. It's like it's literally like a straight up thing, and just like yeah, it's essentially like a straight up thing from not gonna say copy, but it's like a straight up like adaptation from that with just imagery and stuff. But I mean, yeah, it's still a good book. If you ever read it for the first time, I guess my review would kind of decline on it just because I've already read the book, so I already knew what happened. So it kind of made it a little boring. But I mean, it's definitely a good comic book if you've never read the book or anything. That's definitely a really good comic book. I do like the Thrawn series. And then my other Star Wars book is this Han Solo Star Wars book. Now I'm gonna be fully well honest. It's been a while since I've read this. But I remember when I originally read it, it was pretty interesting. It showcases Han Solo. It's pretty interesting. Would I recommend people picking it up? Honestly, if you're a fan of Han Solo, pick it up. But I mean, if you're not, I'd say definitely maybe just a little bit of a pass on it. But I mean, yeah, it's still an interesting comic book though. Okay, so let's get quickly into the Marvel stuff. Well, technically these are Marvel too, if you think about it, because they're Marvel published, but it's Star Wars. Don't worry about it. I just kind of felt like saying that there, but yeah. Anyways, let's get into it. So, firstly, right, real quick, I'm gonna get into like more of my, I guess you could say, crossover event stories, and the first one's gonna be Infinity Gauntlet. This is the one from the 80s. The original time of the Infinity Gauntlet comic book. I picked this up around 2018 when the Avengers Infinity War came out. I wanted to read it, so I picked it up. I don't have Infinity War the comic, the sequel to this. I've read it before though. Also, a quick note as well, as I use like Marvel Unlimited stuff to read comics and stuff, so that's why I don't have so many graphic novels and still understand it stuff. So yeah, I do recommend using that too, but I like to have the hard copy of certain comics that I like, so yeah. Anyways, Infinity Gauntlet is a pretty good story. I enjoyed it. I like Thanos in it. It was pretty cool. I just don't have an Infinity War comic book, the sequel or whatever. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah, the next comic book I'm gonna show is Civil War. So yeah, this is the original issue from like when Civil War originally came out. I think it was like mid 2000s. Actually, I personally never bought it. I actually took it from one of my family members. He had it and gave it to me, so I was like, all right, cool. And yeah, so it's original copy, Civil War, which is pretty cool. It's a graphic novel. Civil War comic is definitely a good comic. I recommend reading it. I really enjoyed reading it. Yeah, that's just me though. If you want to read it, that's cool too. If you don't, that's cool too. Next up we have X-Men, the Dark Phoenix Saga. So yeah, that's a pretty good comic. I do enjoy it. It's not the original print from the 80s, but it's a comic that came out like in the 80s and stuff. Yeah, I definitely recommend if you're an X-Men fan, read this. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. Especially if you want to learn the Dark Phoenix Saga, definitely read this. I would say though that there's one thing I would say though, is the fact it's good and stuff, but it's not for everyone. I've noticed this a lot with like these older comics, for example, Infinity Gauntlet, Dark Phoenix, which I just showed. Those are printed a bit differently in terms of their fact they came out like during the 80s and stuff. So of course they look different with their more classical outfits and stuff. So yeah. And then next up we have House of M. House of M is pretty good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good comic. I recommend reading it if you're a fan of just like mutants and the Avengers, I guess you could say, or just Marvel and just in general. But I do really enjoy it, so yeah. Anyways, moving on to the next comic. So now this is a kind of a crossover comic. We're more moving into more like single hero stuff. But yeah, this is the way I like to keep my comic books, by the way, when I'm saying these things. So first of all, we have Deadpool Kills Marvel Universe. I actually like the comic a lot. It's really interesting. I liked seeing how Deadpool killed the Marvel Universe. It's pretty interesting. And I should have also said a bit of a warning. This is a bit graphic. I didn't even realize this, but yeah, that's a bit graphic. So yeah, that's a bit graphic. Sorry about that if you were a young viewer or something and you didn't want to see that. Sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, I think that's the most graphic one out of all, but yeah. Anyways, it does even have a parental advisory at the bottom, which I didn't even realize. Yeah, but definitely recommend getting it. It's a pretty cheap comic too, so it's like it's not too much. It's like I got mine for like $10. So yeah, it's a pretty cheap comic and it's pretty good. So yeah, highly recommend it. If you're a fan of Deadpool and stuff, highly recommend getting it. Now, this is a comic I still need to... Well, actually, technically, I started reading and I know what happens in some of it. But it is Daredevil Born Again. If you ever want to get into Daredevil, I recommend getting this comic. It's really good. It really kind of reinvented the character a lot more. If you know, back in like before this was Daredevil was just like a different character. He's kind of campy and stuff. But this really made him stand out as more of that darker hero. So yeah, it's called Daredevil Born Again. Recommend getting it. It's actually by Frank Miller. And I think his name is David Mazzucchelli. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It's actually the same people that wrote and drew Batman Year One. And I think they came out actually around the same time this comic book did. But I highly recommend reading this if you can. Personally, I haven't finished reading it, so I'm not going to give my review on it just yet. But so far, when I'm reading it, I'm liking it a lot. I'll hopefully finish it soon, though. Next up, we're getting... I guess you could... Yeah, these are some more crossover stories, but I mean, it's whatever. I kind of put these backwards. But, yeah, it's going to be Absolute Carnage. So, yeah, actually, sorry about this. It's Absolute Carnage. Yeah, it's Absolute Carnage. I really enjoy it. I really enjoyed this story. It's a crossover story again, but I mean, can't go wrong with any crossover stories. Really enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. I actually read this on Marvel Unlimited first, and then I was like, I actually really like this comic book. So then I decided ultimately, let's get it up. Let's pick up a hard copy about it. And yeah, I haven't regretted it at all. It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. Next up we have Absolute Carnage versus My apologies on that. Don't mind my stuff here. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not too good with editing and stuff, so that's the reason why I didn't just cut it there. Yeah, my apologies on that. Let me just fix up the camera here real quick. My apologies about that. Anyways, so then we have Absolute Carnage versus Deadpool. That's a pretty good comic. I do highly recommend it. Tying into our Absolute Carnage series. So, yeah. Now, it's the time I like. The Spider-Man time. So, yeah, I've got about 5 Spider-Man comics here. Just right off the bat here. Some good stories I do enjoy. Of course, Spider-Man comics are personally one of my favorites to read. I do enjoy them a lot. Firstly, I just picked up this comic. It's the Absolute Carnage crossover with Spider-Man. Yeah, I do enjoy this comic book. It's pretty good. But honestly, in full honesty, I actually picked it up by accident. What had happened? Yeah, it's a long story. I actually picked it up by accident, thinking it was another type of story. I thought it was actually the Absolute Carnage crossover series. I don't know. I was dumb at the time. I was really stupid at the time, and I thought that I didn't look at it properly. Like, I didn't look through the pages or anything. I just saw it. I said Absolute Carnage. I was like, wow, I'm stunned to find this. So I was like, I picked it up, bought it, and then once I realized, I was like, oh man, I screwed up badly. Sorry about it. But I mean, it's still a good comic. I still enjoy it. I actually really like the cover art too. I think the cover art's awesome. Actually, the way I display my comics actually is I put all these comics on the shelf, and I take out like 1 or 2 covers and just stick it up so you could see the different cover art. That's personally my favorite cover art. I would say it's either that, probably Absolute Carnage versus Deadpool. I like that one. There's some other ones I do like as well. I think Flashpoint Paradox is pretty good too. Coming up next is a monumental Spider-Man story, Craven's Last Hunt. I actually really love that story. It's really cool. Highly recommend it. If you're a Spider-Man fan, it's a must read. I gotta say, it's really showcased this character. Or I'm not gonna say if you're a real Spider-Man fan. I'm gonna say if you just enjoy a good villain story, I recommend getting it. It's really good. Highly recommend getting it. It's very interesting, very fun and stuff. So yeah. Now this comic book is, in my personal opinion, I've done a video on it once before, but it's one of my personal favorite Spider-Man stories. I know that could be a little bit weird to say, but with this newest stuff, but it's one of the symbiote Spider-Man tie-ins from that recent series they started doing with the symbiote Spider-Man series they were recently doing back in I think it's 2019. But I mean, I picked this comic up just because I actually really like the comic book. I think it's really fun. It actually showcases a lot more Mysterio. If you're curious to learn about the character a bit more, it does a pretty well done job. Personally, this is why, after reading this comic, this is personally why Mysterio, in my opinion, is one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Yeah. Anyways, continue on here. So we have, next up, we have the Spider-Man Blue comic. Yeah, we have Spider-Man Blue. That's a pretty good comic. I really enjoyed it. Personally, I would say this is second in terms of my all-time favorite Spider-Man comics. It probably goes like Spider-Man Life Story and Spider-Man Blue. Actually, I'm trying to pick up Spider-Man Life Story soon. I still don't have it, but I mean, I've read it a bunch of times on the Marvel Unlimited app. But I mean, Spider-Man Blue is definitely a really interesting story. Recommend it for any Spider-Man fan. It's really good. Now, next up, we got a very monumental Spider-Man comic as well. We got Spider-Man Death of the Stacys. I'm gonna be fully well honest. I know what happens in the comic and stuff. Obviously, I've read the panels a few times, but I've never actually read it yet. I recently picked it up. Well, I didn't pick it up actually. One of my family members gave it to me. Yeah, so I actually recently got this comic, but I plan on reading it very soon. I realize this comic is very dirty. Sorry about that. It's very old, so That's the reason it's kind of dirty like this, so my apologies. I don't keep my comics like this, don't worry. I don't like put it in dusty areas or something. It's just it's very old, so it's like at least over 5+ years old, and it was in a basement before. So yeah, it's not. That's why some of these comics are in kind of bad conditions, because again, they weren't originally mine. So yeah. So with that being coming to an end, we actually have now. This is the Marvel collection. That's the last of the Marvel collection. Now we're gonna move into more of the DC stuff. Let's go with the DC stuff now. So this is kind of in random order, but let's just go. Let's start off with this one. Picked this up because it was on sale one time, and I thought it was pretty interesting premise. So yeah, it's Forever Evil. I thought it was an interesting comic. I thought it was pretty fun to read. A fun read to kind of see like the villains of the DC universe team up and stuff. I know some people think it's bad, but personally, I thought it was alright. It was pretty good. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Next up, we have like the whole DC Comics 0-year tie-ins, all the tie-ins from that. I kind of picked that up honestly, just because it was on sale one time. Like, I think it's like a $40 comic or something like that. $40 comic, and then I got it for like 10, so it was very cheap. So then I was like, why not? Let's give it a shot. I want to read Batman 0-year, so I might get Batman 0-year as well. I'm trying to get that too. But I thought, why not get the tie-ins out of the way? I still haven't yet read this comic before, so yeah. Anyways, going into now other random comics I have here. So first of all, we have here Justice League of America Rebirth Deluxe Edition. This is just like a random comic again I picked up. I'm not really sure why I picked it up, honestly. It was on sale or something, and it looked like an interesting premise. I was curious to see how this team would work out. So honestly, I just thought, why not? Let's do it. I bought it, and yeah, I still haven't read it yet. I'm still reading. I'm still waiting to read it. But it was like a recent pickup. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah, continuing on here, we got Kingdom Come. That's a pretty good storyline. I really enjoyed it. Good art and stuff. Yeah, really fun comic, or not really fun comic, sorry, really good comic read, but highly recommend for any DC fan. It's really interesting, especially if you're curious about alternate universes and stuff. I know personally, I'm a person who is, sorry, I just dropped my watch by accident. My apologies about that. I'm personally a person that enjoys alternate universes and stuff, so I was just like, why not? Let's pick it up. So yeah, and then here we have Superman Red Sun, which is another pretty interesting comic that I do enjoy. I really enjoyed it. Definitely a must read for Superman fans. And then next up we have Flashpoint Paradox. Flashpoint Paradox. Very good comic. Probably one of my favorite DC comics, I would say. Yeah, I would say this. Not really sure. I have to think about it harder, but I mean, it's up there. It's definitely top 10 in terms of DC Comics. I really enjoyed it. Really good premise and stuff. Really enjoyable. Highly recommend for any Flash fan, any DC fan in general, any fan of alternate universes. Check it out. Then we got Flash Rebirth. I got this. I thought it seemed pretty interesting, and I like the cover art. And yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. It essentially takes place after the events of Flash essentially dying, and then he comes back around this time. So yeah, highly recommend it if you're interested and want to learn a bit more about that kind of stuff. Definitely, I recommend checking it out. So yeah. Anyways, so let's go into the Batman comics I have. So firstly, I've got this Batman Arkham Knight comic. It's an interesting read. It's not like very good or anything, but I mean it's pretty interesting. I got it on sale too, so yeah, it's pretty interesting to say the least. And then of course we've got the Batman Who Laughs comic. I've got that as well. Awesome cover art, and it's pretty interesting. I actually really enjoyed it. If you're interested to learn it and also see the fight between the main Batman that we have and this Batman, I highly recommend checking it out. It's pretty interesting. And then we got one of my favorite Batman comics ever. We got Killing Joke. We got the Batman, the Killing Joke, the Deluxe edition. Personally, it's like one of my favorite comic books. I really enjoy it. I've read it like tons of times. It's really interesting. I like the art and stuff. It's really cool. I really like Alan Moore's work. I think he's a really good comic writer. So, yeah. Anyways, I'm just gonna, instead of removing all these and making a big mess, I'll have all over again. So then you're gonna remove a few. But anyways, next up we have here, we got Blackest Night. The Blackest Night saga. And, yeah, personally, really enjoyable. Really enjoyed it. I really highly enjoy this comic book. Highly recommend it to any Green Lantern fan or any fan of like the DC universe. It's really interesting. An awesome tie-in. Now here's a comic I still haven't read yet. I recently picked this up. It's The Dark Side War. Yeah, I can't really say too much on it because I haven't read it. I just know it's a good comic. People have said it's a good comic. And honestly, I can't wait to read it. I'm going to read it hopefully soon. Anyways, this is the last comic book of the video. And that's going to be Watchmen. I've read Watchmen about twice. And I've seen like the movie and stuff and TV shows. Yeah, definitely some good stuff with the Watchmen. I really enjoy it. And I didn't even realize I accidentally kind of damaged my... yeah, so, yeah, we have the Watchmen here. And my apologies, the Watchmen's kind of damaged a bit. I didn't even realize that happened. But, yeah, that was by accident. Yeah, so, yeah, the Watchmen, it's definitely an interesting read. Highly recommend it. Anyways, that's pretty much it, though. So, in terms of my comic book collection, I have a bunch of comics here. Of course, my collection keeps growing, so eventually I'll do another one of these videos. I think I might do them yearly, maybe for a few months or something. But anyways, that's pretty much it, though. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.